polling age right now to get the vote out?
So that's a wonderful question. I don't know if people who study the movement, they may recognize that what happened is that in Perry County, Alabama, what was the spark that we know from the Selma Montgomery March was actually there was a man named Jimmy Lee Jackson who was actually murdered by state troopers. When we're talking about police violence, that part of the civil rights movement wasn't just about the vote, but it was actually ignited by an act of violence by the state. The state troopers actually murdered Jimmy Lee Jackson in Perry County, Alabama. And the people were so upset that what they wanted to do is they actually wanted to walk that night. Reverend James Orange used to tell this story to us consistently at CT Vivian. They wanted to walk that night from Perry County to bring Jimmy Lee Jackson's body and put it on the steps, these very steps that we're looking at on the steps of the Capitol to let the state know this is one of our brothers that you have killed, that you have murdered for doing, only trying to really fight for the right to vote. And so there were some of the organizers in SNCC and SLC that said, no, let's organize and let's have a march where we actually march as a group. And then some will know that there was one attempted march that had happened earlier, but then there was this. So this march from Selma to Montgomery, the impetus of that was actually an act of police violence when an innocent man who was trying to protect his grandfather was actually killed by the state police. And so in that, what wound up happening is that they committed themselves to the Selma to Montgomery March. We know that on Bloody Sunday, they were beaten back once again by the state troopers and state police in the state of Alabama. And so they came later, and people joined from all over the country, all over the world. And there was a trek, a 50-mile trek from Selma to Montgomery, where they marched every day, 10 miles a day, and people met them. And so it's really surreal to experience that. That part of the motorcade, we actually were at the end, bringing up the rear of the motorcade that went in. We literally, to be there and to see people lined up in Lowndes County and Wilcox County and Dallas County and Selma to stand on the side of the road on that very same route. So his body once again is now in the rotunda of the state of Alabama. But many of the issues that they were fighting then are still the issues that we continue to fight. We are continuing to fight against state section violence against black people in this country. That is what has led to the uprisings in all 50 states. We're still consistently fighting for the right to vote, particularly in light of voter suppression, when we know, like the Brennan Center had a report that talked about from 2016 to 2018, there was over 17 million voters that have been dropped from the voting rolls. It means that, just like I went to vote in Georgia just a couple of weeks ago, that I stood in line for 3 hours, that there were other African-American voters that stood in line for 5, 6 hours. When we look at Kentucky, where in Kentucky, in the same place where there has not been any justice for the murderers of Breonna Taylor, but in addition to that, what we also know is that they're in a county, in Jefferson County in Louisville, where the majority of the African-American population lives, for 612,000 voters, there was only one polling site. So we continue to see this fight. It changes in some ways, and some things they don't seem to change at all. But what we are committed to doing, what gives me hope, and what I have seen and been so inspired by it, is as we were passing by, as we were going down the 50-mile trek from Selma to Montgomery, I was seeing and witnessing people who had tears in their eyes and fists raised and love in their heart. Like that people, when the people rise up, things will change. So that is what gives me hope. 100 years out, it's not a matter of what other folks will do. What it matters is